Joining us tonight to talk about the significance of DOJ preparing a brief for President Marcos, we have with us ICC Assistant Counsel Atty. Kristina Conti. Attorney Conti, thanks for making time for us again tonight.
Yes, good evening.
Attorney Conti, your audio is a little bit soft. Can we try that again? Can you hear us okay?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Fantastic.
Is
Loud
this better?
Yes, loud and clear.
All right.
So you heard our top story tonight, and the reason this is making headlines is because this seems to be the first concession, if I can call it that, from the administration that they need to study all their legal options, that they need to prepare the president for all scenarios. Help us put this into context. Are we just reading too much into it, or is this a real pivot?
Well, for us, this is a significant development considering that President Marcos made several statements already. And then at one point, he seemed to be flip-flopping. There was one point when he said, we're going to study returning or signing back again onto the Rome Statute. So that was a surprise for us that it appears when President Marcos came into his position, into the presidency, he was quite, well, I can't say unaware, but he was not fully abreast of the details of this issue. In fact, if you look back during his campaign, it turns out that there was very few information that he sent out. And in fact, there was no clear indication of what his position was on this issue during the campaign. And this offer or this instruction for the DOJ to make a briefer is very much welcome. Finally, he will have to come to terms with the various jurisprudence regarding this issue, as well as the political ramifications of not cooperating with the ICC.
You're right. For most of his term, President Marcos was adamant that they're not going to cooperate with the ICC. As recent as 2 weeks ago, he said they're not going to hand former President Duterte over if the ICC comes with the arrest warrant. But now you have DOJ spokesman, Attorney Miko Clavano, saying the frameworks may evolve. What did you make of this?
That's interesting because, yes, these policy frameworks could very well include the Philippines rejoining the ICC, cooperating with the ICC, or in any shape or form, agreeing to this investigation. There's many ways to interpret this wording, this clause. But for us, it could only turn for the better. Because right now, for the victims, we're at, rock bottom, we're at the worst position. Well, less worse in a sense because it's not Duterte in power. But right now, we have the president, as you said, adamant on not cooperating with the ICC. With this briefer, best case scenario is that he will change his mind. And if he doesn't change his mind, then it will just remain the same. So for us, the victims, this is welcome in one sense.
Okay, well, since we had you last on the show, Attorney Conti, which was less than 2 weeks ago, I believe, we were talking, and you were talking to us about timelines, about the possible timelines of the release of arrest warrants. And since then, one person has been very noisy about the ICC. I'm talking about former Senator Antonio Sonny Trillanes, who says that he sort of has a line with the ICC. Can you confirm or deny whether his info on the timeline actually hits the spot?
Mm-hmm. Well, we have a little bit of problem with speaking in behalf of the ICC because at this point of the investigation, the ICC will not confirm nor deny anything that anyone who is in contact with says. So that is a precarious dilemma for both Senator Trillanes and us, because even if we were to say that we are cooperating with the ICC, who's to say that we aren't? But on the part of Senator Trillanes, I would tend to believe that he can confirm this information, even if he is not privy to some information from the ICC, because he is in contact with the police or military officials themselves. I would tend to believe that Senator Trillanes has had contact with Matubato, Las Cañas, and among themselves, they would be in touch with several active or retired police and military officials. So he can confirm this on two fronts. One, as part, or as he says, he claims to be part of the investigation. And on the other hand, those who are being investigated, he knows them as well.
So this is in relation to what Senator Trillanes mentioned as he's hearing that warrant of arrest will be issued by June or July. Right now at this point, you have no information as to whether we are about to reach the point where warrants will be issued. No information yet.
I have no information that could be verified, or I cannot go on record as regards the investigation, because really, one of the caveats of participating in the processes is that at this point, all matters regarding arrest warrants, subpoenas, witnesses is confidential. Everything should be confidential for the safety of those the ICC is in touch with. However, I would say that according to the process, the period, the timeline would seem reasonable. In the ICC, there is a sort of limit, or there's a regular period of about 120 days before the court is deemed to have lapsed on its duty to act on something. 120 days is about, 4 months? So that's 1 quarter. And the period of the processing of the application of the warrant of arrest, the issuance of the warrant of arrest, and implementation of the warrant could very well fall within those first quarter, second quarter terms that Senator Trillanes says.
Tell us a little bit more.
But for us, what we can say is that we are expecting a warrant of arrest within the year.
Tell us a little bit more about the nature of this warrant of arrest. For one, is it bailable? What are the options for those who are issued the warrant of arrest?
And the charge is, crimes against humanity, correct?
Yes, crimes against humanity in acts of murder, or they could also include other inhumane acts. So, to also include abuses and torture and illegal arrests. In the ICC, actually, if I may backtrack a little bit, they can issue 2 types of these so-called warrants. It could be a warrant of arrest, which is an order to take a person in custody, and a summons, which is an order for this person to appear before the court and give information, probably. So summons or warrant of arrest. And these 2 instruments could be issued even during an investigation. As soon as the court determines that this person has committed or is probably responsible for crimes against humanity in a particular territory. So for us, even before the investigation, we firmly believe that there is sufficient evidence to issue a warrant of arrest or a summons, at least, for President Duterte to provide information. If the investigation, the thing is with the investigation is that right now the scope of the situation in the Philippines is broad. It starts from November 2011, ends March 2019. From November 2011 to, June 2016. It talks about Davao in particular, and then from July 2016 to March 2019, nationwide. The scope is broad, and during the investigation, it could be narrowed down. So that is what I'm not sure of, because it depends on the witnesses and the evidence that would point to the possible perpetrators. For the ICC, and here's a problem as victims, what we know of are those who committed the killings on the ground. Kumbaga, yung kumalabit ng gatilyo. So we know who the shooters are, we know who the policemen who conducted the operation are, the team leaders, etc. The foot soldiers, so to speak. But somebody has to connect the killings on the ground to the masterminds. And that is what we're not quite sure of at present. How many and who are these insider witnesses that the ICC have already talked to or are already keeping in their custody. But we trust that the ICC will eventually pull together the best case possible for justice for all of the victims. So essentially, I would say that the scope of the investigation could go smaller. It could be more limited in scope. And so there could be some areas where there is no proof or connection between the killings and the quote-unquote masterminds.
And these two kinds of warrants, both the arrest warrants and the warrants for summons, these are both to be enforced by the PNP if it comes to that?
Yes, it has to be enforced by the PNP. And if ever you would apply for bail, as you mentioned, you would have to apply that before the court, but you have to be in custody. It is the court which will determine if there is grounds to allow you to leave the premises, if they would allow you to be, or if they would investigate you in non-custodial matters or non-custodial circumstances. So the PNP's role in all of this is crucial, or I would also like to add the NBI's role because of their role in the Interpol. They're the lead agency that coordinates with the Interpol. And the Interpol has a cooperation agreement with the ICC. The Interpol for information about the whereabouts of these wanted persons, but the PNP in particular, or the local police, to implement or to serve the warrants. There is this possibility, and I'm looking at that now, for the Interpol to come in and to send a specialized team. They do that in certain cases, and I'm just not sure if this possible arrest of, say, President Duterte would qualify. Considering that he has, I think he's made several statements that he will not be caught alive. And then if the police come in or the ICC comes in, he will massacre all of them. So with those threats, I think it would have to be enforced by the best team possible, and that would include Interpol agents.
DOJ spokesman Attorney Miko Clavano says they will be preparing President Marcos over all his possible legal options with regard to the ICC. In our simple, non-legal minds, there are only two options here. One is Interpol serves the warrant, PNP cooperates and, serves it to former President Duterte or the other suspects, and the other option being they don't cooperate at all. Is there a third alternative here as far as the legal options of President Marcos?
Well, I would say that those are the options.
Technically,
it's just the PNP that could cooperate. We're just looking at possible scenarios where there is support to the PNP. So either the PNP serves the warrant or implements the warrant, or it doesn't. When it serves the warrant, will it need help? Will it be assisted by somebody else? And on the decision of whether to serve the warrant or not, there we can find political issues. For example, do we serve the warrant because it is requested by another country with whom we have an extradition request? Do we serve the warrant because of an Interpol request? Do we serve the warrant because of ICC? Or do we serve the warrant out of goodwill and in consonance with international obligations? So those are matters that I think should be included. But bottom line, yes, there's two options. Either the PNP serves the warrant or it doesn't. I think if we're leading at the possibility that someone else, say, the US or sino pa bang police pangkalawakan, the US or some other police force comes in and extracts Duterte, I would say that would not be possible or should not be in the cards.
Because it's technically not legal.
Yes, it's not legal, and that would be a violation of our sovereignty.
Right.
Because it would be against our will, essentially.
Right, because as President Marcos keeps pointing out, we do have a fully functioning judicial system. We're going to have to leave that there for tonight. As always, thanks so much for helping us make sense of things. ICC Assistant Counsel Attorney Kristina Conti.